You know, some stories take decades to tell, and at 79 years old, Hayley Mills is finally ready to share hers, the real story of working with the legendary Maureen O'Hara. And trust me, what she reveals will completely change how you see one of Hollywood's most iconic films. But before we dive into that bombshell revelation, we need to go back to the beginning, because understanding who Hayley Mills became starts with understanding where she came from. Let's take you back to where it all began. Picture this, April 18th, 1946, London, England. The world is still recovering from World War II, but in one particular household, there's pure joy. A baby girl is born into what can only be described as theatrical royalty. Her name? Hayley Catherine Rose Vivian Mills. And yes, that's a mouthful of names, but each one carries weight, tradition, and expectation. Now, when I say royalty, I'm not exaggerating. Her dad was none other than Sir John Mills. And if you don't recognize that name, you need to. This man was an absolute powerhouse on screen, delivering career-defining performances in classics like Great Expectations and Ryan's Daughter. He wasn't just an actor, he was a craftsman who could make you feel every emotion with just a glance. And her mother? Mary Hayley Bell was no background player either. She was an incredibly talented playwright and novelist who commanded respect in her own right. This wasn't a family where one parent had the career and the other stayed home. This was a household where artistry flowed from both sides. Imagine growing up in that environment for a moment. Close your eyes and picture it. Every dinner conversation probably dissected character motivations and script structure. Every family gathering had artists, actors, directors, and storytellers filling the rooms with creativity and passion. Weekend afternoons might have been spent at the theater or watching rehearsals. For young Hayley Mills, this wasn't just background noise. This was her childhood, her normal, her entire world. She didn't learn about acting from textbooks or drama classes. She absorbed it like breathing air. The discipline, the dedication, the understanding that performance is both art and craft, all of this became part of her DNA before she even realized it. Her parents didn't just work in the arts, they lived them with every fiber of their being. And that passion, that absolute devotion to storytelling, it seeped into everything Hayley would become. She was being molded, whether consciously or not, to continue a legacy of excellence. Fast forward to 1959. Hayley's just 12 years old, still a kid by any measure, when she steps in front of the camera for the very first time in a British crime drama called Tiger Bay. And get this, she's not just making her debut with some unknown cast. She's acting opposite her own father. Can you imagine the pressure, the expectations? Everyone watching to see if the Mills family magic would pass down to the next generation? But here's the thing, she absolutely crushed it. And I don't mean she was good for a kid, I mean she delivered a performance that left critics speechless. They couldn't stop talking about this young actress who brought such raw emotion, such genuine authenticity to the screen. She wasn't acting, she was being. There's a massive difference, and audiences could feel it instantly. At 12 years old, Hayley Mills proved she had inherited her parents' gift and then some. And you know who noticed? Walt Disney himself. Yeah, the Walt Disney, the man who built an empire on understanding exactly what audiences wanted to see. He watched Tiger Bay and saw something extraordinary in this young British girl. She had this perfect, almost magical combination of innocence and intelligence that just radiated from the screen. She was wholesome without being saccharine, spirited without being bratty, talented without being pretentious. She was exactly what Disney had been searching for, the living, breathing embodiment of everything his brand represented. Before long, Hayley was signing on the dotted line with Walt Disney Studios, entering into what would become one of the most fruitful collaborations in Disney history. And let me tell you, what came next would change everything, not just for Hayley, but for family entertainment as a whole. 1960, Pollyanna. This was the film that launched Hayley Mills into the stratosphere. She played this eternally optimistic orphan who somehow managed to brighten even the darkest corners of everyone's lives with something called the glad game. Now, in less capable hands, this character could have been insufferable, too sweet, too perfect, too unrealistic. But Hayley, she made you believe. She made you feel.
The performance was absolutely luminous, so much so that she won the Academy Juvenile Award, becoming one of the youngest Oscar recipients in history. Let that sink in for a second. Still in her early teens and already an Oscar winner. The Academy, those tough critics who've seen everything, looked at this young British actress and said, "Yes, this is exceptional." Pollyanna became an instant Disney masterpiece, and honestly, you can trace that directly back to Hayley's magical ability to make audiences fall completely in love with her character. She captured something universal: hope, kindness, that unshakable belief that goodness exists even in the hardest circumstances. And people didn't just watch it, they felt it in their souls. She became the face of Disney in the early 60s, the ultimate Disney heroine, the gold standard by which every young actress would be measured. But then, 1961 happened. The Parent Trap. If you thought Pollyanna was impressive, buckle up. This film required Hayley to do something that seems impossible even today. Play not one, but two completely distinct roles. Identical twins named Susan and Sharon who'd been separated since birth and accidentally reunite at summer camp. On paper, it sounds like a fun concept, but the execution? That's where the magic happened. Remember, this was 1961. CGI didn't exist, green screens were primitive. The split-screen technology required to pull this off was cutting-edge and incredibly difficult to work with. Hayley had to perform scenes talking to herself, reacting to herself, even physically interacting with herself, all while making it look completely natural and believable. The technical achievement alone was mind-blowing for its time. But Hayley didn't just meet the technical requirements. She made you believe these were two completely different human beings. Susan was polished, sophisticated, raised in Boston high society. Sharon was adventurous, mischievous, raised on a California ranch. Different accents, different mannerisms, different personalities. The comedic timing, the emotional depth, the sheer technical skill required to pull this off, she made it look effortless, like it was the easiest thing in the world. This film became a cultural phenomenon that has endured for over 6 decades. It's been remade, referenced, and rewatched by generation after generation. And it still holds up today as one of the greatest family films ever created. That's the mark of true talent, creating something timeless. The 60s kept rolling, and so did Hayley's success. In Search of the Castaways in 62, Summer Magic in 63, That Darn Cat in 65, each film reinforced her status as Disney's golden girl, the box office guarantee, the actress every studio wanted. She could have easily coasted on that image, cashed the checks, and lived comfortably forever. But that's not who Hayley Mills was. Here's where things get really interesting. Hayley was growing up, maturing, evolving, and like any talented artist worth their salt, she was hungry to stretch herself beyond that innocent child star image everyone had comfortably locked her into. The world wanted to keep her as Pollyanna forever. But Hayley wanted to be an actress, not just an icon. So in 1966, she took a major risk with The Family Way, a much more mature, complex, and challenging role that showed the world she wasn't just Disney's darling anymore. She was a serious actress with serious range and serious ambitions. And it worked. Critics praised her transition, noting that she brought the same authenticity to adult roles that she'd shown as a child. The decades rolled on, and Hayley never stopped working, never stopped challenging herself. Television dramas where she played complicated women, stage productions where she tackled classical roles, independent films where she could take creative risks. She continued proving herself over and over again in ways that went far beyond her early fame. In 2000, Disney honored her with the Disney Legends Award, cementing her legacy as someone who genuinely shaped the magic of Disney's golden age. But beyond the accolades and the recognition, Hayley became something entirely else, an advocate. She started speaking out publicly about what it's really like to grow up in the spotlight, the psychological toll it takes, the identity struggles, and how crucial it is for young performers to hold on to their sense of self when the world is constantly trying to define them.
Now, let's talk about her personal life, because this is where things get really complicated, really controversial, and really human. 1966. While filming The Family Way, 20-year-old Hayley meets the film's director, Roy Bolting. And here's the thing that made headlines everywhere. He's 53 years old. That's a 33-year age gap, folks. To put that in perspective, Roy Bolting was old enough to be Hayley's grandfather. You can imagine the absolute scandal this caused. Remember, the world still saw Hayley as that sweet, pure, innocent Disney star, the girl who taught everyone to play the glad game. And now she's dating a man who was already an established filmmaker before she was even born. The tabloids went absolutely wild. The judgment was intense, relentless, and brutal. But Hayley? She saw something completely different. She saw a brilliant mind, a sophisticated worldview, someone who lived and experienced things she wanted to understand, someone who treated her like an equal, not a commodity or a child star to be managed, someone who understood art, appreciated her talent, and encouraged her to evolve as an actress beyond the Disney mold. Roy saw her as a talented, independent woman with a creative spark that made her special, not just another pretty face or famous name. Despite all the judgment, all the gossip columns, all the disapproving looks, they fell deeply for each other. And in 1971, when Hayley was 25 years old, still young, but legally and emotionally an adult making her own choices, they got married. It was Hayley's declaration to the world, "I'm not your Disney princess anymore. I'm my own woman, and I'll live life on my own terms." They split their time between two very different but equally enchanting homes. First, there was their chic flat in Chelsea, London. You know, that neighborhood that's always been synonymous with artists, intellectuals, musicians, and free thinkers. The kind of place where creativity was in the air and convention was politely ignored. And then there was Cobstone Windmill in Buckinghamshire. Can you picture it? An actual converted windmill perched on a hillside overlooking the rolling English countryside. It sounds like something out of a storybook, doesn't it? They'd host intimate gatherings with fellow artists and filmmakers, take long contemplative walks through the Chiltern Hills, and for a while, for a beautiful, peaceful while, it seemed picture perfect, like they had found their own private paradise away from the chaos of fame and judgment. But reality, as it often does, eventually caught up. The age difference that seemed romantic at first began to reveal practical challenges, different energy levels, different life priorities, different perspectives shaped by being from completely different generations. Personality clashes that had seemed charming became frustrating. By 1977, after 6 years of marriage, they'd made the difficult but mature decision to divorce. But here's what's important to understand. That relationship, controversial as it was, represented something crucial in Hayley's life. It was her declaration of independence, her refusal to let public opinion dictate her choices. She was no longer the controlled, manufactured Disney princess. She was a real woman making real choices, sometimes messy ones, sometimes controversial ones, but always her choices. And from that marriage came something genuinely beautiful, their son, Crispian Mills. This kid inherited the absolute best of both parents. His mother's natural charisma and love of performance, his father's creative vision and artistic sensibility. In the 90s, Crispian became the frontman for Kula Shaker, this incredible band that blended psychedelic rock with Indian music during the Britpop explosion. They had major hits, critical acclaim, and Crispian carved out his own identity in the music world, not as Hayley Mills' son, but as an artist in his own right. And Hayley? She's always been incredibly, vocally proud of what he's accomplished. After the divorce, Hayley found connection again with actor Lee Lawson in the mid-70s. He was a rising star in British film and television, and they shared this immediate artistic chemistry and emotional connection.
In July 1976, they welcomed a son together, Jason Lawson. For a while, things felt hopeful, fresh, and full of possibility. But you know how it goes when you're dealing with two passionate, ambitious actors, demanding schedules, different career paths, pulling them in different directions, different visions for the future. By the early 80s, they'd amicably decided to go their separate ways, staying respectful co-parents and supporting each other's work from a distance.
Here's where the story gets really sweet, really touching. 1997. Hayley's in her 50s now, touring in a stage production of The King and I, and she meets her co-star, Ferdous Bamji, an actor and writer who happens to be 20 years younger than her. Now, if you're thinking, wait, didn't people give her grief about the age gap before? You're absolutely right, but this time, Hayley didn't care what anyone thought. She'd learned that lesson already. They're playing Anna and the King, night after night, and somewhere between the rehearsals and performances, somewhere in the magic of theater, something real and profound develops. Unlike her previous high-profile relationships that were dissected by tabloids, Hayley and Ferdous have kept things beautifully, intentionally private. They're not interested in the spotlight or the gossip. They're interested in the work, in the art, in each other, in building something real away from the cameras. And you know what? They're still together today. Over 25 years of partnership rooted in creativity, mutual respect, and genuine love. It's the kind of relationship that proves that real connection transcends age, fame, and all the noise that comes with public life. After everything Hayley experienced, the marriages, the heartbreak, the public scrutiny, she finally found lasting peace with someone who understands her completely. Which brings us to now. After all these years, at 79 years old, Hayley Mills is finally opening up about something fans have wondered about for over 6 decades. What was it really like working with Maureen O'Hara in The Parents Rap? These two women, the young British starlet and the Irish Hollywood legend, what was their relationship actually like behind the scenes? Was there tension, jealousy, competition, or something else entirely? Here's what Hayley says, and listen carefully to these words. Maureen was a force of nature. And the way she describes her, strong, direct, utterly professional, no nonsense, but underneath that tough, almost intimidating exterior, warmth, real compassion, real heart, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Picture this. Hayley's just 14 when she meets Maureen O'Hara for the first time. And O'Hara, she's already a Hollywood icon at this point. Tall, elegant, radiating confidence and power, with that famous fiery red hair and that unmistakable Irish accent that could command attention in any room. Hayley admits she was terrified. I was terribly shy, she confesses. And here was this magnificent woman who just commanded every space she entered. She filled a room the moment she walked in. Maureen O'Hara had already conquered Hollywood in a way few women ever had. The Quiet Man, How Green Was My Valley, Miracle on 34th Street, these weren't just movies. They were classics that defined an era. And she'd done it all by refusing to be pushed around in an industry that was brutally dominated by men. She was known for her iron will, her refusal to compromise her values, and her zero tolerance for disrespect. Directors who tried to bully her found themselves facing someone who wouldn't back down. Studios that tried to underpay her learned she knew her worth. So you can absolutely understand why young, shy, still finding herself Hayley might have been intimidated walking onto that set. She wasn't cruel, Hayley clarifies immediately, because she wants people to understand this. But she had expectations. High ones. It didn't matter how young you were or how famous you were. If you were on that set, you were there to deliver your absolute best work, period. She didn't accept anything less, and she didn't make excuses for anyone. But here's what's beautiful about this story. As filming progressed week after week, that initial intimidation transformed into something else entirely. Admiration, deep, genuine respect, understanding. I started to see how much she cared, Hayley explains, and you can hear the emotion in her voice even now. She wasn't just going through the motions or cashing a paycheck. Every moment, every scene, every line, she was fully invested.
She lived and breathed that character. Watching her work was like getting a masterclass in what it means to truly inhabit a role. Every glance carried meaning, every gesture was purposeful, nothing was wasted. And here's something that really touches my heart. Maureen took notice of the young actress too. Between takes, during those quiet moments when the crew was resetting lights or adjusting cameras, she'd pull Hayley aside and share wisdom, not just about technical acting skills, but about surviving in the spotlight with your soul intact.
Hayley remembers one piece of advice that has stuck with her for over 60 years. You have to know who you are, Hayley, before the world tells you who to be. At 14, Hayley didn't fully grasp the depth of what Maureen meant. But decades later, after everything she's experienced, that advice has been her North Star, her guiding principle through every storm. Off camera, the two developed a quiet but genuine friendship, though Maureen was naturally private and reserved when the cameras stopped rolling. She didn't engage in gossip or Hollywood drama, Hayley recalls with obvious respect. She didn't play those games. She valued integrity above everything else, above fame, above money, above popularity. But she also had this wonderful, unexpected sense of humor. I can still hear her laugh echoing across that set. It was infectious. Maureen would lighten tense moments during long shooting days by sharing stories from her early days in Ireland, or her wild adventures filming with John Wayne on location in the rugged landscapes of the American West. She could get the entire crew laughing, Hayley says with obvious fondness warming her voice. And she had the sparkle in her eyes that reminded you she wasn't nearly as stern or serious as her reputation suggested. There was joy. Over time, as Hayley matured and gained her own experience navigating Hollywood's treacherous waters, she came to understand the battles Maureen had fought just to be treated fairly. She had to work twice as hard for half the respect, Hayley reflects with a touch of anger for the injustice of it. People mistook her strength for arrogance or difficulty, but it wasn't arrogance, it was survival. She demanded fairness and dignity in an industry designed to exploit women, and that made her a target. She was labeled difficult simply for expecting to be treated like a human being. But she never backed down, not once. That example, that model of how to be strong and kind simultaneously, shaped how Hayley navigated her own career through all its ups and downs. Maureen showed me that you can be kind without being weak. You can be firm without being cruel. You can have boundaries without being cold. That's a rare balance, and most people never find it. But Maureen mastered it. She lived it every single day. Looking back now, across all these years and all these memories, Hayley speaks of Maureen with this beautiful mixture of affection, gratitude, and lingering sadness. I wish I'd told her how much she influenced me while she was still alive, Hayley says quietly, and you can hear the regret. I wish I'd said, Maureen, you changed my life. You showed me how to be strong. She shaped not just my acting, but how I approach everything, relationships, challenges, setbacks, with honesty, courage, and yes, a little bit of that Irish fire. When Maureen passed away in 2015, at the age of 95, Hayley felt the loss deeply, personally. It was like losing a piece of old Hollywood, she says. That kind of grace, that kind of strength, that kind of uncompromising integrity, it just doesn't exist anymore. The industry has changed. She was truly one of a kind, and we'll never see her like again. These days, when Hayley watches The Parent Trap, and yes, she does still watch it occasionally, she sees more than just a film that defined her career. She sees memories, moments, a friendship that shaped her. She says, I see her face, and I remember the little things that made all the difference. The reassuring smile she'd give me right before a difficult scene when I was nervous. Her hand on my shoulder saying, You've got this, darling. The way she'd wink at me when we nailed a take. Those are the memories I treasure most.
Not the fame or the awards, but those small, human moments of connection. And here's how Hayley sums it all up, and I think this is really the heart of the whole story. Maureen wasn't just a co-star. She was a mentor when I desperately needed guidance. She was a protector when I was vulnerable. And she was a friend when I needed someone who understood. Working with her was one of the greatest gifts of my entire life. I wouldn't be who I am today without her influence.
After decades of silence, after all these years of keeping these memories private and close to her heart, Hayley Mills has finally told her truth about Maureen O'Hara. And honestly, it's a story about so much more than just two actresses on a movie set. It's about respect across generations. It's about growth through mentorship. It's about the profound, lasting impact one strong woman can have on another when she chooses to lift her up instead of tear her down. It's a reminder that the most meaningful relationships in our lives aren't always the loudest or most public ones. Sometimes they're the quiet friendships forged in the trenches, the wisdom shared between takes, the moments of connection that shape who we become when no one's watching. And that's the real magic of Hollywood's golden age, not just the technicolor films or the glamorous premieres, but the human connections that made them possible, the mentorships that weren't publicized, the friendships that weren't photographed, the moments of grace that changed lives forever. So what do you think? Has Hayley Mills's revelation changed how you see The Parent Trap? Does knowing about this beautiful friendship between these two incredible women make you appreciate the film even more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found this story as touching and inspiring as I did, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're diving deep into the untold stories behind your favorite classic films, the relationships that shaped Hollywood history, and the legends who paved the way for today's stars. Next week, we're uncovering another bombshell revelation from Hollywood's golden age that you absolutely won't want to miss. Until then, remember, behind every iconic film is a human story waiting to be told. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories are the ones that take decades to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.